Rain hammered the windshield so hard that Grace Collins could barely see the road ahead. Wipers moved at full speed, but everything was a blur of red taillights and highway reflections. 7-year-old Noah sat in the back seat hugging his stuffed dinosaur, legs pulled close to his chest. He hated storms, and tonight the thunder mixed with something even worse. Engines. Several engines. Grace tensed when she heard them. The noise grew louder, sharp, and aggressive, like a wave closing in. She gripped the steering wheel. "Noah, look at me," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "Everything's okay." But Noah didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on the rear window. Bright lights approached fast. Too fast. "Mom, racers," he whispered. His voice trembled. "Racers are dangerous." Grace opened her mouth to reassure him, but she never got the chance. 2 cars shot past on the left lane, water spraying from their tires. Neon underglow lit the wet pavement. Engines roared as they overtook every car in sight. Another pair of cars followed, swerving dangerously close. Grace gasped and eased off the accelerator. "Not tonight, please." But the racers didn't slow. They pushed harder and harder, fighting for space on the narrow bridge ahead. Thunder crashed. Rain thickened. Visibility dropped. One of the racers hydroplaned on standing water. Its back end fishtailed violently. The driver tried to recover, overcorrected, and spun sideways across the bridge entrance. Grace screamed. She hit the brakes. Tires skidded. Everything happened at once. A truck slammed into the out-of-control racer. Another car swerved and hit Grace's sedan from the side. The impact threw the vehicle into a violent spin. Noah screamed as his seatbelt dug into his chest. His stuffed dinosaur flew across the car. Glass shattered. Metal twisted. A racer behind them tried to dodge the chaos but lost control and crashed into the bridge rail. Sparks exploded across the wet road. Grace's car spun again. The airbags deployed with a deafening pop. Noah squeezed his eyes shut and covered his head with shaking hands. When the car finally stopped sliding, everything went silent except for Noah's rapid breathing and the distant sound of engines fleeing the scene. Grace barely stayed conscious. Her door was crushed. She tried to reach behind her to check on Noah, but winced in pain. "Noah," she breathed. "Are you hurt?" He didn't answer. His small body trembled. His eyes were wide, unfocused, staring at the smoke and broken lights outside. "Mom," Noah whispered. "Where's Dad?" Grace froze. His father had been in the car ahead of them. He had swerved earlier to avoid the racers. He was somewhere in the crash zone now, among the crushed metal and smoke. Rain poured through the broken window. Flames grew from one of the wrecked vehicles. Something exploded in the distance. Grace tried to open her door again, but it was jammed. "Noah, stay still," she pleaded. "I'll get us out. I'll get you out." Before she could do anything else, her passenger door was yanked open from the outside. A figure leaned in through the shattered frame. Noah blinked. For a moment, he saw only a soaked racing jacket, a dark helmet, and a pair of intense eyes, full of fear and urgency. The man pulled the seatbelt off Noah and lifted him into his arms. "Hold on," the stranger ordered. His voice was firm but shaken. Noah clung to him, too stunned to speak. The man ran through the rain, carrying him away from the burning cars. Grace shouted after them, but her voice was drowned by another explosion behind her. The stranger set Noah down near the guardrail, checked him quickly, then ran back toward the wreckage without saying another word. Flames lit the silhouette of his racing jacket for one brief moment, and then he vanished into the chaos. Noah stared at the fire, shaking uncontrollably. "Mom," he whispered again. "Dad." But he already knew. His father wasn't coming back. 3 years later, Noah Collins, now 10 years old, tightened his backpack straps and hurried to catch up with his mother as they walked through the suburban neighborhood they now called home. Grace worked 2 jobs. Noah did everything he could to cause no trouble. He tried to be brave. He tried to be normal. But every time he heard a loud engine, his heart still raced. Grace hid her own pain behind forced smiles. She made sure Noah never saw her cry at night. She kept him away from anything that sounded like racing. She avoided highways, big events, and car shows. She even changed the route to school after someone nearby bought a sports car with a loud exhaust. "Are we going to the store or home first?" Noah asked while kicking a pebble along the sidewalk. "Home," Grace said. "The rain looks heavy today." Noah nodded. He always nodded. He never caused a scene, never complained, never mentioned racers. He didn't want to worry her. As they turned a corner, the rumble of an engine echoed from around the block. Grace stiffened immediately. Noah stopped walking and grabbed her hand tightly. A red sports car rolled slowly out of an alley, rainwater dripping from its hood. The paint was bright and polished. The engine purred low and smooth. Noah's breath caught in his throat. He recognized it. Not exactly the same car from the accident, but the same color, the same style, the same presence that haunted his dreams. Grace stepped in front of him protectively. The car parked at the curb. A man climbed out. He wore a dark hoodie, jeans, and rain-damp hair. His posture was strong, confident, and familiar without being recognizable. But his eyes froze Noah in place. They were the same eyes he had seen through the helmet on the bridge. The man paused when he saw Noah. His expression shifted. Shock, guilt, something unspoken that made his chest tighten. He took one small step forward. Grace immediately raised her arm. "Stay where you are." The man stopped. "I'm not here for trouble," he said calmly. Grace cut him off. "We don't talk to racers." His jaw tightened at the word. Noah stared, unable to move. "You should go," Grace insisted. "Now." The man held Noah's gaze for one long second. His eyes softened in a way that made Noah's stomach twist. Then he nodded silently, stepped back, and got into the red car again. But before he closed the door, he looked at Noah one more time. It was a look of recognition, a look of regret, a look that said he knew exactly who Noah was. The engine started. The car pulled away. Noah didn't breathe until the taillights disappeared. Grace held his shoulders. "Are you okay?" Noah swallowed hard. "Mom, why did he look at me like that?" Grace hesitated. "I don't know," she whispered. "But we stay away from racers. Always." Noah nodded, but his mind spun. He knew that man. He had seen those eyes before. He had felt those arms lifting him from the wreckage. The stranger wasn't just a racer. He had been there the night Noah's world fell apart. And for the first time in years, Noah wasn't sure if he should fear him, or if he should follow the truth he had tried so hard to forget. Jackson Hale spent most of his nights at the Red Line Phoenix garage. Even when the sun went down and the city lights faded, he stayed. He stayed because silence made it harder to outrun his memories. The garage was the only place that gave him enough noise to drown the past. Tonight, he sat on the floor with his back against a tool cabinet, a tablet in his hands. On the screen was a blurry article from 3 years earlier. Bridge accident leaves 1 dead, several injured. Illegal racing suspected. His jaw clenched. The article didn't mention him. It didn't mention how he had tried to drag a man out of a wreck before the flames spread. It didn't mention how he carried a 7-year-old child through the rain. It didn't mention the explosion that forced him to jump back and watch helplessly as the father was lost behind the fire. People only saw the racers. They never saw the truth. Jackson closed the tablet and stood up. He walked toward the main bay where 3 cars waited under bright lights. Miguel was under one of them, tightening bolts. Shane was testing a sensor on the hood of another. And Tori, sharp, skilled, always focused, sat at a computer running diagnostic scans. Red Line Phoenix wasn't just a racing team. It was a crew that worked on legal car modifications, safety events, and community fundraisers. They had rules. They avoided risky races. They refused anything illegal. But still, people lumped them together with the worst racers in the city. "Jax, you're quiet," Shane said, wiping grease off his hands. More quiet than usual. Jackson shrugged. "Saw someone today." Tori glanced up. "Someone or something?" "A kid," Jackson said. And his mom. Miguel pushed himself from under the car. Okay. And? Jackson hesitated. The garage noise suddenly felt too loud. The memory from the alley replayed in his mind. The boy's face, the fear, the confusion, the way he stared at Jackson like he remembered him, and the mother's voice filled with hatred. Grace Collins, Jackson said quietly, and her son, Noah. Tori froze. Her chair stopped rolling. Noah Collins? Jax, you're sure? He nodded. Shane exhaled sharply. And how did she react? As expected, Jackson answered. She told me to leave. Tori stood, arms crossed. Jax, what did you expect? That she'd thank you for being there that night? I wasn't there for thanks, Jackson said. I was there because we collided with something we shouldn't have. Because they were in danger, because... Miguel raised a hand. You don't need to justify it to us. But Jackson wasn't explaining for them. He was explaining because the truth stayed stuck in his throat whenever he thought about that night. He walked over to the large garage door and stared at the street outside. He looked at me like he remembered, like he recognized me. Tori stepped closer. He was 7. Trauma doesn't always leave clear memories. He remembered my eyes, Jackson muttered. I'm sure of it. The garage fell quiet. Tori softened her voice. What are you afraid of? That the mom will discover you were there? Or that the kid will remember everything? Jackson turned away. Doesn't matter. It's in the past. But the truth was, it mattered. It mattered more to him than anything else. Grace sat at the small kitchen table staring at the rain outside. Noah had gone to bed early. He said he was tired, but she could tell he was shaken by the encounter with the man in the red car. She pressed her hands together. Why did that racer look at Noah like that? Why did Noah look back? Grace hated thinking about it. She hated racers. She hated the noise of modified engines. She hated the culture around street racing. But mostly, she hated that they were a reminder of the night she lost her husband. Her phone buzzed on the table. A news alert flashed. Racing incident downtown. Police investigating possibility of illegal run. Grace turned the phone face down and shut her eyes. She didn't want Noah anywhere near that world. Around midnight, Jackson stepped outside to breathe. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets wet and reflective. A black car rolled slowly past the garage entrance. Jackson noticed the tinted windows and the low growl of the engine before it parked across the street. He knew that sound. The door opened. Dante Cross stepped out. Dante was tall, sharp-featured, and always carried a cold, careless expression. He led Black Venom, a crew that used racing as a front for illegal activities, transporting stolen goods, intimidation, and dealing on the side. They were everything Redline Phoenix refused to be, and Dante knew it. Well, Dante smirked. If it isn't Jackson Hale, still playing charity hero? Jackson crossed his arms. If you're here for a reason, say it. Dante walked closer, hands in his pockets, confidence dripping from every step. Saw your little moment today, in the alley. Mother and child, cute. Jackson's jaw tightened. Stay out of their business. Oh, I'm not in their business, Dante said with a shrug. I'm in yours. Miguel and Shane appeared behind Jackson, watching silently. Tori joined them, arms folded. Dante's eyes scanned the group. Relax. I'm not here to start a fight, but I have a friendly warning. Jackson didn't respond. Dante continued. There's a big run coming. Important cargo. Good money. I don't need extra police around. So tell your little friend Grace Collins to stop posting online about increasing safety patrols and surveillance. She's attracting attention. Jackson took a slow step forward. If your run crosses near her neighborhood, it will, Dante said casually. Which is why I want you to keep her quiet. Jackson's fists clenched. She has nothing to do with your operations. Everything in this city has to do with my operations, Dante replied, including you. The streetlight reflected in Dante's cold eyes. And if you interfere, he added, people get hurt. He turned his back, walked to his car, and drove off without another word. When Dante's engine faded, Tori looked at Jackson. He knows about Grace. Yeah, Jackson said, anger tightening his voice. He's using her as leverage. Miguel shook his head. We can't let him run anything through that area, not after what happened to them. Shane crossed his arms. So what now? Jackson stared at the wet pavement, mind racing. Now, he said quietly, we protect them. Tori raised a brow. Even if they don't want our help? Especially then, Jackson said. He walked back inside the garage without another word, but something in his expression had changed. He wasn't just remembering the bridge anymore. He was preparing for something that hadn't happened yet. Noah sat alone during recess, picking at the edge of a small drawing he made in art class. It was supposed to be a picture of a car, but he couldn't finish it. Every time he drew headlights or tires, he felt uneasy. He hid the drawing when his friend Ethan sat down beside him. You okay? Ethan asked. Noah nodded. Yeah. You looked scared this morning when that loud car passed. Noah swallowed. I don't like racers. Why? Noah stared at the ground. He didn't want to relive everything, so he just said, they hurt people. Ethan accepted the answer. Kids didn't need long explanations, but Noah couldn't stop thinking about the man from yesterday. His eyes, his voice, the way he froze when he saw Noah. Hey, Ethan said suddenly. Want to go to the park after school? Noah shook his head. I should go straight home. Your mom still worried? Yeah. Ethan nodded. My dad said racers only cause trouble. Noah opened his mouth to agree, but the words didn't come out. He remembered the accident, the smoke, the crying, the heat. But he also remembered something else. He remembered being lifted out of the car. He remembered strong arms holding him. He remembered feeling safe for a moment before everything exploded again. He couldn't understand why that memory was suddenly so clear. Grace picked Noah up from school. As they walked home, she kept glancing around, tense and alert. Mom, Noah said, do you think that man yesterday was a racer? Grace hesitated. Yes. Why did he look at me like that? I don't know, she said. But we're staying away from him. Noah nodded, but the uneasiness stayed in his chest. When they turned onto their street, Noah stopped walking. The red sports car from the day before was parked again. Grace froze. Jackson stepped out of the driver's seat with a bag of groceries in his hand. He looked surprised to see them. I'm not here to bother you, he said quickly. I'm dropping this off for Mrs. Harper. She's sick and couldn't get to the store. Grace's eyes narrowed. You stay away from us. Jackson's face tightened for a moment, but he didn't argue. Instead, he lifted the bag and walked toward an elderly neighbor's porch. Noah watched him knock, smile softly when the old woman opened the door and handed her the groceries. The woman hugged him in thanks. Noah's heart beat strangely. That wasn't the behavior of someone dangerous. Grace gently pulled Noah's arm. Come on. Inside. As they walked toward their house, Noah glanced back. Jackson stood in the driveway watching them go. Not threatening, not proud, just conflicted. The same conflicted expression he had worn on the bridge 3 years ago. That night, Noah lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. He whispered into the darkness. Why do I remember him? He didn't know the answer. And he didn't know that someone else, somewhere in the city, had started following Grace's online posts. Someone who didn't want increased police patrols. Someone who didn't care about children. Someone who had no rules. Dante Cross. And he had already decided that Noah Collins was becoming a problem. A problem he intended to solve. The next morning, the sky was clear, but Noah still felt like a storm was stuck inside his chest. He sat at the small kitchen table, pushing cereal around his bowl. Grace moved quickly around the room, packing her work bag, checking the time on the stove, trying not to look as stressed as she was. You need to finish eating, she reminded him gently. We're leaving in 5 minutes. Noah nodded and forced a spoonful into his mouth. He didn't taste anything. All he could see in his mind was the red car and the man with the haunted eyes. "Mom," Noah said quietly, "that racer, he helps Mrs. Harper." Grace's hand paused over her purse. "He does things to make himself look good. That doesn't change who he is." "But he bought her groceries," Noah insisted. She smiled. She hugged him. Grace closed her eyes for a second. Some people can be kind in small ways and still make terrible choices. Noah lowered his gaze. Did Dad ever make terrible choices? The question hit Grace like a punch. She took a breath, sat down across from him, and leaned forward. "Your father was a good man," she said firmly. "He tried to protect us. He tried to protect other people too. That night on the bridge, he did everything he could." Noah swallowed. Was it really because of racers? Grace's jaw tightened. The police said there was illegal racing involved, cars going way too fast in a storm. That's all I need to know. Noah didn't argue. He knew that tone. It meant the conversation was over. But in his chest, doubt quietly grew. Because now, he had new images in his head. A racer bringing groceries to a sick neighbor. A racer watching him with regret instead of pride. A racer who, in some faint, blurry memory, had pulled him from a car. Grace stood up. "Finish eating. We're going to be late." At the Red Line Phoenix garage, Jackson leaned over the hood of a sedan, but his mind wasn't on the vehicle. His hands moved on habit. His thoughts were elsewhere. On a boy with wide, scared eyes. On a woman with too much pain in her voice. On a threat from a man who liked to hurt people. "Earth to Jax," Tori said, snapping her fingers near his face. He blinked and looked up. "What?" "You tightened the same bolt 3 times, she said. "You're going to crush it." He sighed and put the wrench down. "Sorry." Miguel came over, wiping his hands. "You've been off since Dante dropped by. What's the plan?" "The plan is to keep an eye on his movements," Jackson said, "especially near Grace's neighborhood." Tori crossed her arms. "And how exactly are we doing that? We can't just sit on a corner and stare at her house all day. That would make things worse." "We're not stalking her," Jackson replied. "We're watching the roads. Dante said he has a run coming. He'll need routes, escape paths, places to hide. If he uses her area, we'll know." Miguel nodded slowly. "So we're looking for increased traffic from Black Venom. Vans, suspicious cars, anything with their signature mods." Shane rolled a chair over with a laptop balanced on his knee. "I pulled footage from some of the street cameras online. Nothing obvious yet, but a couple of cars linked to Dante passed near the bridge 2 nights in a row." Tori frowned. "He's testing routes." "Exactly," Jackson said. "And I don't want Grace or her kid anywhere near that when it happens." Tori gave him a pointed look. "You care about them a lot for someone who barely talked to them." Jackson stared at the engine. "I dragged that kid out of a burning car. I left his father behind. That's not something you just forget." Silence fell for a moment. Then Tori placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did what you could. Now maybe you'll get a chance to do more." School ended, and Noah shuffled out of the building with his backpack hanging low. His friend Ethan ran up beside him, bouncing a little as he walked. "Hey, my dad's picking me up in a bit," Ethan said. "He got a new car. It's loud." "Want to see it?" Noah's stomach twisted. "Loud, like racers?" "Not like them," Ethan said quickly. "Just louder than his old one." He's excited. Noah shook his head. "I think I'll just walk home with my mom." Ethan shrugged. "Okay, see you tomorrow." Grace was waiting at the corner, smiling lightly when she saw Noah. "Hey, buddy." He smiled back. "Hi, Mom." They started walking their usual route. The sky was clear and the afternoon was bright. Cars moved calmly through the intersection ahead. For the first few minutes, everything felt normal. Then a horn blared. Noah glanced up. At the busy crosswalk ahead, several kids from his school waited for the light to change. A delivery truck slowed to a stop. A sedan rolled up behind it. The walk signal turned green. Children stepped off the curb. Grace and Noah were still half a block away when it happened. A dark SUV came rushing up the cross street, well over the speed limit. The driver's face glowed with the light of his phone. He didn't see the red light. He didn't see the kids. Noah froze. "Mom." The SUV didn't brake. The truck driver saw the danger at the last second and hit his horn, but it was too late. The kids in the crosswalk turned their heads in confusion. Everything was moving too fast, except for one red car. It was parked near the curb, nose pointed toward the intersection. Jackson sat in the driver's seat, watching the traffic. He had been there for 20 minutes, tracking a suspicious plate that never showed. He was about to give up and leave when he saw the SUV. He didn't think. He reacted. Jackson slammed his car into gear and drove forward. Tires squealed. The engine roared as he cut across a lane and slid the car sideways, aiming directly for the path of the SUV. People screamed. Grace dropped Noah's hand. Jackson mashed the brake and yanked the wheel, forcing the rear of his car to swing out. The red body blocked the crosswalk like a shield. The SUV slammed into Jackson's car in a burst of sound and twisted metal. The impact shoved the red car several feet, but it held the line. Children stumbled back. Some fell, but none were hit. Noah watched with wide eyes as glass flew and the air filled with the smell of burned rubber. For a second, everything stopped. Then the street exploded in noise, horns, shouts, footsteps. Grace grabbed Noah and pulled him behind a nearby parked car. Her hands shook. The SUV's front end crumpled, its airbags deployed. The driver groaned, dazed. Jackson's car sat at an angle in the crosswalk, front end destroyed, smoke rising from under the hood. The driver's door of the red car opened. Jackson stepped out, stumbling slightly, one hand on his ribs. He looked over the children, scanning quickly. "Is everyone okay?" he shouted. A few kids cried. One had a scraped knee. Teachers and parents ran toward them. Grace stared at Jackson with shock, her heart pounding. He had put his own car in front of the SUV. He had taken the hit that would have hit those kids. That would have hit Noah if they had been closer. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police arrived and blocked off the area. Paramedics checked the children and the drivers. The SUV driver admitted he had been texting and hadn't seen the light. An officer approached Jackson. "You all right?" "I'll live," Jackson answered, wincing as he touched his side. "You realize you could have been killed?" the officer asked. "If I hadn't moved," Jackson said. "Those kids would have been in the path." The officer didn't argue with that. Nearby, Noah watched silently. His legs felt unsteady. His hands were cold. He couldn't stop staring at Jackson's totaled car. Grace knelt down in front of him. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. "No." She checked him anyway, hands moving over his arms and shoulders. When she was satisfied, she pulled him into a tight hug. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're okay." Noah hesitated, then spoke in a small voice. "He saved them." Grace didn't respond. He pulled back enough to look into her eyes. "Mom, he saved them. He saved us." Her throat tightened. She didn't want to admit it. She didn't want to look at Jackson and see anything other than danger. But she had seen the entire thing. She had seen the SUV. She had seen the crosswalk full of children. She had seen Jackson's rash, immediate decision. She stood up and walked toward him, Noah close by her side. Jackson saw them and straightened, his expression guarded. Grace stopped a few feet away. "You could have been killed." He nodded once. "They could have been too. Why were you even here?" Her voice shook slightly. "Watching traffic," he said. "Keeping an eye on certain plates. Your area is complicated right now." She frowned. "Complicated how?" He glanced at the police nearby, then back at her. Not a discussion for the street. Grace's jaw clenched. "Are you telling me you almost died because you were, what, playing vigilante?" Noah looked between them. "He saved the kids, Mom." Grace shook her head. "He also draws danger here, Noah. People like him always do. Jackson's eyes darkened at that. People like me? Racers, she snapped. People who live chasing speed and chaos. Something in his face hardened, but he didn't fight. Look, he said quietly. Believe what you want about me. But your son is standing here unharmed. That's enough. He turned slightly as a medic approached to check his ribs. Grace grabbed Noah's hand again, but Noah twisted his wrist free. He took a hesitant step toward Jackson. Thank you, Noah said softly. Jackson looked down at him. For a moment, his guarded expression broke, revealing honest surprise. You're welcome, he replied. Their eyes locked like they had in the alley. This time there was no screaming, no fire, no smoke. Only confusion, and something that felt dangerously close to trust. Across the street, inside a black sedan parked behind a delivery truck, Dante Cross watched the scene unfold through tinted glass. He had been running a different kind of test, timing lights, checking intersections, measuring response time for police. But what he saw today was more interesting than any traffic pattern. He saw Jackson Hale throw his own car in front of an SUV to protect a group of kids. He saw a woman and a boy who clearly mattered to him. Dante smirked. Well, he muttered. Jackson has a soft spot. The man in the passenger seat, a lean guy with tattoos on his neck, glanced at him. You know them? Not yet, Dante said. But I will. He watched Noah. The boy clung close to his mother, staring at Jackson like he was trying to solve a puzzle. That kid, Dante said slowly, might be useful. The passenger frowned. He's just a kid. He's more than that, Dante replied. He's connected to Jackson. You saw the way they looked at each other. He leaned back in his seat, an idea forming in his mind. If Jackson keeps getting in my way, Dante said, we might need leverage. He nodded toward Noah through the windshield. And there he is. Grace sat on the edge of her bed with her phone in her hand. The video from the crosswalk played again on the screen. Someone had filmed the entire thing and posted it online. She watched the SUV run the light. She watched the children step forward. She watched the red car throw itself sideways into the path. She watched Jackson climb out, chest heaving, eyes scanning for injuries. Beneath the video, comments exploded. The red car saved those kids. That driver's a hero. Racers are not all the same. Grace locked the phone and rubbed her forehead. She didn't like it. She didn't like that the man who fit every one of her fears had just acted like the man her husband used to be. Someone who would risk everything for strangers. Noah stood at the doorway, holding his stuffed dinosaur. Can I sleep here? He asked quietly. Grace nodded. Come in. He climbed onto the bed and sat beside her. Mom, he whispered, if racers are dangerous, why did he do that? Grace stared ahead. Sometimes dangerous people feel guilty and try to make up for what they've done. But what if he's not dangerous? Noah pressed. What if he's good? Grace looked at her son. His eyes were earnest, searching. I don't know, she said honestly. I really don't know. Noah lay down and curled up beside her. She covered him with a blanket and stroked his hair. In the darkness, his small voice drifted up. I think he was there that night, Noah said. At the bridge. Grace's hand stopped. What? I remember, Noah whispered. Someone in a jacket carried me. I saw the same eyes today. I think it was him. Grace's heart pounded. If that was true, then the man she had been avoiding all this time wasn't just any racer. He was part of their past. He was part of the worst night of their lives, and he had now saved her son twice. Questions flooded her mind, heavy and relentless. Why did he disappear after the accident? Why had nobody mentioned him? What exactly happened to her husband? She didn't have answers. Not yet. On the other side of the city, in a dark warehouse filled with modified cars and engine parts, Dante Cross looked over a map spread out on a metal table. Red lines indicated routes. Blue circles marked police cameras. A small X scribbled near the old bridge marked something new. Noah Collins. Dante tapped the X with his finger. If Jackson wants to play hero, he said to his crew, we'll give him a reason. He smiled coldly. Next time we race through this city, it won't just be about money. It'll be about control. And if I have to grab that kid to tame Jackson Hale, he shrugged. Then that's exactly what I'll do. The engines in the warehouse started one by one, echoing into the night. And without knowing it, Noah Collins had just been pulled into a game far more dangerous than any race he had ever imagined. The next few days felt heavier for Noah and Grace. Even though life continued normally on the surface, schoolwork, groceries, something underneath had shifted. Every time Noah tried to sleep, he saw the red car sliding in front of the SUV. Every time Grace checked her phone, she expected another news alert about racers or street incidents. Neither of them said it out loud, but both of them were thinking the same thing. Jackson Hale wasn't supposed to be the villain. On Thursday, Grace woke up exhausted. She didn't sleep at all. She kept replaying the moment Noah said he recognized Jackson's eyes. She didn't want it to be true. Didn't want him to be the man from the bridge. Didn't want to owe anything to a racer. Mom? Noah asked softly while eating toast. Are we okay? We're fine, sweetheart, she answered too quickly. Noah didn't believe her. He was getting older. He noticed things. He noticed fear. Are racers coming back? He asked. Grace paused. We stay away from that world. That's all we can do. Noah lowered his head. But Jackson... Grace's voice cracked as she interrupted him. Noah, please, just let it go. She grabbed her purse and hurried him toward the door. Neither noticed the black sedan parked at the end of the street. The black Venom warehouse was filled with movement. Engines revved. Men carried sealed boxes to the back of vans. Dante walked between them with a clipboard in his hand. Keep the cargo secure, Dante ordered. We run tonight. No delays, no surprises. One of his men, Rico, approached him. What about the Phoenix crew? They've been poking around. Dante smirked. Let them look. They won't catch anything. And the kid? Dante placed the clipboard down and leaned back against a work table. Noah? He asked casually. He's leverage. Leverage for what? Rico asked. For control, Dante said. If Jackson interferes with tonight's run, we use the kid. If the cops start sniffing around, we use the kid. If the mom keeps posting about patrols, guess what? Rico's face hardened. We use the kid. Exactly. Dante snapped his fingers. Easy insurance. He checked the time. In 12 hours, the city would become a racetrack, and Noah Collins was already marked. After school, Noah walked in silence beside Grace. The sidewalks were crowded, but he felt like they were alone in a bubble of tension. Mom, he whispered, why won't you tell me what you're scared of? Grace hesitated. I'm not scared. You are, Noah insisted softly. You get nervous when engines go by. You check the windows at night. Noah, she said sharply. That man, Jackson, he is part of the world that hurt us. I won't lose you like I lost your father. Noah stopped walking. You think racers killed Dad? He said quietly. Grace's throat tightened. Yes. But what if you're wrong? He asked. Grace's face went pale. Don't say that. Mom, he saved me, Noah whispered. Twice. Grace grabbed his shoulders, her hands trembling. I don't care. I don't want you near any of them. Then she turned and kept walking quickly. Noah stood frozen. His chest hurt. He didn't want to fight her. He didn't want to scare her. But he also felt something he hadn't felt in years. That night, Grace cooked dinner, but Noah barely touched it. He kept glancing out the window toward the direction of the old bridge, the place where everything started. After he went to his room, Grace finally sat on the couch exhausted. She didn't hear Noah open the window quietly. She didn't hear his small footsteps on the grass. She only noticed he was gone 15 minutes later. Noah? She called through the hallway. Noah! Panic filled her instantly. She checked the backyard. Empty. She checked the street. Empty. She called his name again and again. Nothing. Her hands shook as she grabbed her keys. Where would he go? What would he want to see? The answer hit her like a blow. Noah walked fast, wiping his face every few minutes. He wasn't running away forever. He just needed to understand. He needed to see the place that haunted him. The old bridge sat over the river, its structure stiff and silent under the moonlight. Traffic was lighter now, but Noah could still hear echoes of the past. He stopped at the spot where the railing had been repaired, where the accident happened, where he lost his father. His hands trembled. He forced himself to breathe. "Dad," he whispered, "I want to know what happened. I need to know." That was when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned, but it wasn't Grace. It wasn't Jackson. It was one of Dante's men. "Well, look what we have here," the man said with a cold grin. "The little Collins kid." Noah stepped back. I need to go home." "Not tonight," the man replied. A van pulled up from behind a pillar. 2 more men appeared. Noah's heart stopped. He tried to run. A strong hand grabbed him from behind. He screamed. A cloth covered his mouth. His arms were tied. He was shoved into the back of the van. The doors slammed shut. Noah cried out, but the engine roared and drowned his voice. The van sped away into the night. Grace turns to the last person she wanted. Grace reached the bridge minutes later. She parked in the wrong lane, ran across the asphalt, searching for Noah's backpack, his shoes, anything. She found nothing. Then something flashed in the corner of her eye. A security camera high on a pole. She gasped and pulled out her phone. Who in this city knew how to find footage fast? Who worked with street cameras? Who knew these roads? Who would care enough to look? Her hands shook as she typed the address of the My Red Line Phoenix garage. She hated it, but she had no choice. When she arrived, the garage door was half open. Jackson, Tori, Miguel, and Shane were inside prepping their cars for the night. They turned when they heard her footsteps. Grace stood in the doorway, out of breath, face pale. "My son," she gasped. "Noah, he's missing. I think racers took him. Please, help me." Jackson froze. "What?" he whispered. Grace's voice cracked. "He's gone. I checked the bridge. Someone took him. Please. Please help me find my boy." Tears streamed down her face. For a moment, Jackson couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The nightmare he feared for years was happening in front of him. "Grace," he said quietly, "sit down." She shook her head. "No, I can't. Just find him." Jackson walked to her, steadying her by the arms. His voice held a tone she had never heard from him before. Urgent, raw, almost pleading. "Listen to me. I was there that night. The night of the accident." Grace's breath stopped. "I tried to save your husband." Jackson continued, voice shaking. "I got Noah out. I pulled him from the wreck. I didn't leave because I was guilty. I left because I thought the explosion would kill us all." Grace stared at him, unable to speak. Her world spun. "You're lying," she whispered. Jackson shook his head. "No, I carried him. He remembers my eyes because he saw them up close." Grace covered her mouth, tears falling harder. Tori stepped forward. "We can argue about the past later. Right now we need to find Noah." Shane slid a tablet into Jackson's hand. "I've got access to nearby traffic feeds. We can check the cameras leading to and from the bridge." Jackson turned the screen toward Grace. "Did he have anything on him? Phone? Tracker? Anything?" Grace wiped her tears. "His backpack. I put a small GPS tag inside in case he got lost." Miguel typed something quickly. "Brand?" she told him. His fingers flew over the keyboard. A dot blinked on the map, and then it moved. Fast. "That's him," Miguel said. "He's in a van heading south. Same route Dante's been testing." Jackson grabbed his keys. "We go now." "Jackson!" Grace reached for him, terrified. He turned back to her, eyes fierce and full of something unshakable. "Grace, your husband saved people that night," Jackson said. "Now I'm going to save your son." He lowered his voice, steady and determined. "I swear I won't let anything happen to him." He ran to the red car. Tori, Miguel, and Shane jumped into theirs. Engines roared. Grace stood in the middle of the garage, trembling, watching the racer she spent years hating prepare to risk everything for her son. The garage door lifted. Redline Phoenix shot into the night. In the back of the speeding van, Noah lay tied on the floor, tears wetting his cheeks. He whispered into the dark, "Mom, Jackson, please find me." And far behind him, 4 engines thundered in reply. They were coming. The van carrying Noah shook violently as it sped through the industrial district. Boxes clattered in the cargo space. The men in the front argued about directions, laughing like nothing wrong was happening. Noah lay on the floor, wrists tied, knees scraped, cheeks wet with tears. Every bump made his heart jump. Every swerve made him think of the bridge, of the crash, of the moment he lost his father. His breath trembled. "Please," he whispered to no one. "Please find me." No answer came, only the roar of the engine. But not far behind, other engines answered. Fast ones. Focused ones. The Redline Phoenix crew was coming for him. Jackson drove like every second was cut from his lifetime. His hands gripped the wheel so tightly his knuckles whitened. Tori and Miguel followed close behind in their own cars, engines high, tires slicing through the night. Shane's voice came through the radio. "We're gaining on them." Van pushed through Oak Street, heading toward the freeway. "Then they're going for the old ramp," Tori replied, eyes narrowed. "The one under construction." "It's Dante's favorite escape route," Miguel added. "No cameras, no traffic." Jackson's jaw tightened. "Then we meet them there." Grace was back at the garage with Shane, watching the trackers and traffic feeds with trembling hands. The only thing she could do now was pray her son stayed alive long enough to be found. One of the kidnappers, a tall man with tattoos down his arms, glanced back at Noah. "Kid's quiet," he muttered. "Good," the other said. "Dante wants him scared, not broken." Noah squeezed his eyes shut. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want to hear these people talk about him. He didn't want to picture what Dante wanted with him. He tried to move his hands again. The ropes burned his skin. "Please," he whispered. "Someone." And then, a sound cut through the air. A sound he knew. Engines, fast engines, not like the rough vans, not like regular cars. These were familiar. These were racers. But this time he didn't feel fear. He felt hope. The van turned sharply onto the abandoned freeway ramp. Ahead lay a strip of unfinished concrete leading to a drop toward the river. Construction barriers were pushed aside. Black Venom had prepared this route. Behind them, headlights crept closer. Jackson's voice came through the Redline radio. "We're engaging. Stay tight. No mistakes." Tori accelerated beside him. Miguel stayed on the right flank. Jackson spotted the van and locked onto it like a target. "They've got eyes on us," the driver inside the van shouted. "Lose them," the man in the passenger seat barked. "Step on it." The van jerked forward and picked up speed, but vans were not built to outrun race-tuned engines. Jackson closed the distance in seconds. He angled his car toward the van's left rear corner. "Jackson, don't hit them yet," Tori warned. "Not hitting," he said calmly. "Tapping." He tapped the bumper at just the right angle. The van wobbled, hard. Inside, Noah rolled, hit the wall, and winced in pain. But the maneuver worked. The van slowed for a moment. Miguel swept in behind them and blocked their escape route backward. "They're boxed in," Miguel said. But the van still had one way forward, toward the unfinished ramp. Another bump rocked the van and Noah's head hit the floor. He cried out. The kidnapper in the back snapped at him. "Shut up." He grabbed Noah's arm roughly. Before he could do anything else, a huge impact shook the entire van. A car slammed into the right side. Tori's car. She hit them hard enough to knock the kidnapper off his feet, but not enough to flip the vehicle. Noah rolled toward the back door and saw through the cracked window. Tori's determined face. Red-line Phoenix decals. A flash of red headlights. Jackson. He wasn't dreaming. He wasn't imagining it. They were here. They were risking everything for him. A sob escaped Noah's throat, but it wasn't fear this time. It was relief. Two black sports cars appeared in the side mirror of Jackson's car. Black Venom backup. Dante's voice came over an open radio channel, purposely broadcast so Jackson could hear. "Pull back, Hale. This isn't your fight." Jackson grabbed his mic. "You took a kid. It's my fight now." Dante laughed. "Then let's dance." The two Venom cars accelerated toward Tori and Miguel. "Tori, Miguel," Jackson shouted. "Hold them off." "I'll get the van." Tori revved her engine. Already on it. She cut across one Venom car, forcing it to brake, while Miguel chased the other. The freeway became chaos, tires screeching, engines screaming, metal grinding. But Jackson stayed locked on the van. He couldn't lose sight of it. Not for a second. Not after what happened years ago. Not after failing Noah's father. He refused to fail Noah. The unfinished ramp loomed ahead. The end was blocked by a weak barrier and a sheer drop to the river. The van was heading straight for it. Jackson felt his blood go cold. "They're going for the jump," he growled. "They're gonna throw the kid." "Then stop them," Tori shouted from behind. But the ramp was long and narrow. If Jackson hit them too hard, the whole van could flip off the edge with Noah inside. He needed to be precise. He needed to put his own life between the van and the fall. "Noah," Jackson whispered under his breath, hands tightening on the wheel. "Hold on." He downshifted. The engine roared. The red car launched forward like a bullet. Inside the van, the kidnappers panicked. "He's coming up on us again." "Gun it." The van sped harder, but it was unstable, shaking violently. One more impact could ruin everything. Jackson knew it. He also knew he had no more time. So he aimed for the rear corner again, but harder. Much harder. He hit it. Metal crunched. Sparks shot across the pavement. The van swerved left, skidding out of its lane. "No, no, no," the driver screamed, losing control. The van spun. It slid sideways across the ramp, right toward the barrier, right toward the drop. Jackson watched, heart pounding, and did the only thing he could. He crashed his car sideways into the van, using his own vehicle as a wedge to stop the slide. The impact was brutal. The world shook. Glass exploded. Metal scraped so loudly it felt like it tore the night apart. But the van stopped, barely, inches from the edge. Jackson's car was pinned against the broken barrier, front wheels hanging over the drop. Inside the van, Noah screamed. "Get him out!" Jackson shouted into the radio. "Now!" Tori had already broken away from the Venom car. Miguel was racing back too. Tori reached the van first, jumped out and yanked the side door open. "Noah!" she cried. He lay tied on the floor, shaking violently. "I've got you," she said, cutting the rope with a small knife. She lifted him into her arms, held him close, and carried him out. Miguel arrived seconds later and shielded them behind a concrete block as sirens echoed in the distance. Noah sobbed into Tori's shoulder. I thought I was gonna fall." "You're safe now," she assured him. "We've got you." But Noah's eyes widened suddenly. He pointed toward the edge. "Jackson." The kidnappers had bailed out and run, but Dante had not. He was still in his car, speeding toward the wreck, toward Jackson's exposed vehicle. He intended to ram him off the edge. Jackson saw the headlights coming. He was too injured, too pinned to move. But he pushed himself out of the broken door. He stepped in front of his wrecked car, body shaking. He faced Dante alone. Dante accelerated. Tori screamed, "Jackson!" Noah cried out, "No!" The car sped closer. At the last second, Jackson grabbed the ruined frame of his own car and shoved it sideways, using every ounce of strength left. Dante's car hit the metal instead of Jackson. It bounced off, spun out of control, and crashed into a concrete pillar. Police sirens closed in. It was over. The chase, the kidnapping, the night, everything. As soon as the police secured the scene, Noah tore himself from Tori's arms and ran to Jackson, who leaned against his destroyed car, barely standing. Noah threw his arms around him. "You saved me," Noah cried. "You saved me again." Jackson rested a shaky hand on the boy's back. "I told you. I wouldn't let anything happen to you." Tori and Miguel watched, breathless and shaken. Grace arrived moments later, running so fast she tripped twice before reaching them. She dropped to her knees in front of Noah and pulled him into her arms. Tears poured from her eyes as she held him. Noah held her back, still crying, but he looked at Jackson over her shoulder. His voice trembled. "Mom, he saved my life." Grace turned her gaze to Jackson and saw the truth she had avoided for years. Not danger, not chaos, not recklessness, but a man who would risk everything for her son. Dante was being handcuffed and shoved into a police cruiser behind them. Jackson slid down to sit on the ground, exhausted, ribs bruised, body shaking. Noah reached for his hand and held it tightly. "Don't go," Noah whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," Jackson murmured. Then his eyes closed. He passed out. Grace gasped. "Jackson?" Paramedics rushed toward him. Noah refused to let go of his hand. Sirens blared, lights flashed, chaos returned. But this time, Noah wasn't afraid. He was only terrified of one thing. What if the racer who saved him twice didn't survive the night? Jackson woke up to the sound of a steady beeping and the smell of antiseptic. For a moment he didn't know where he was. The ceiling was white. The light above him was soft. His chest hurt when he tried to breathe too deeply. He turned his head slowly. Grace sat in a chair beside his hospital bed, dark circles under her eyes. Noah slept curled up against her side, holding Jackson's wrist with both hands as if afraid he would disappear. Jackson stared at them. This wasn't a memory from the bridge. This was real. Now. Grace noticed his movement. Her eyes widened, and she straightened in the chair. "You're awake," she said, voice breaking with relief. Jackson's throat felt dry. "Is he okay?" She looked down at Noah and brushed his hair gently away from his forehead. "He's okay. You saved him." The words hit Jackson harder than any crash. He closed his eyes for a second, pushing back the weight of everything that had happened. "What happened after?" he asked. "Dante was arrested," Grace said. "His crew too. The police had enough evidence to connect them to the thefts, the illegal runs, the kidnapping. They're not getting out soon." Jackson let out a slow breath. "Good." Grace hesitated. "The police questioned you. You were half conscious. You told them the truth anyway." "Couldn't lie with a kid watching," Jackson muttered. "What did they decide?" "There will be hearings," Grace answered honestly. "They know you stepped in to stop a crime. They know you saved those kids at the crosswalk. They know you risked your life on that ramp." She paused. "But they also know you were involved in racing in the past. Even if you stayed away from the illegal side, they still see the line as thin." Jackson nodded slightly. "That's fair." There was a long silence. Then Grace said quietly, "They asked me if I thought you were dangerous." Jackson turned his head toward her. "What did you say?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I said I thought you were one of the bravest men I've ever seen." He stared at her, stunned. "You said that?" "Yes," she replied. "Because it's true. You dragged my son out of a wreck when you were just a young racer who made a bad decision. You could have run that night and never looked back. Instead, you came back into our lives and risked everything. Twice." Noah stirred and blinked his eyes open. He saw Jackson and sat up suddenly. "You're okay," Noah said, relief flooding his face. "You scared me." Jackson tried to smile. "Sorry, kid." Noah grabbed his hand again. "I told Mom you were a good racer, not a bad one." Grace gave a small, tired laugh. He didn't stop. Jackson swallowed hard. I'm not good. I just try to make up for what I did wrong. You didn't kill Dad, Noah said, voice firm for the first time on this subject. You tried to save him, Mom told me. Jackson looked at Grace. She nodded slowly. I didn't want to accept it, she admitted. But the investigation is reopened. The new detectives found more details. They think your husband turned his car on purpose to block some of the impact. He saved other drivers, including you. She took a shaky breath. He died a hero, she said. Not a victim of racers in general. A victim of a bad mix of rain, speed, and one truck driver who lost control. It was never that simple. I made it simple because I was in pain. Noah looked between them, eyes red. I don't want to hate racers anymore, he whispered. I just want to remember Dad the way he really was. Jackson's chest tightened. He was brave. Braver than most people on that bridge, including me. You're brave too, Noah insisted. You came back. You didn't have to. Jackson didn't answer. He didn't know how. So he squeezed Noah's hand instead. Weeks passed. Jackson stayed in the hospital for a while, recovering from bruised ribs, a concussion, and a torn ligament in his shoulder. During that time, Grace and Noah visited almost every day. Sometimes they talked about small things, school, car repairs, Grace's second job, Tori's sarcastic jokes. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. They just sat in the same room. It was enough. Tori, Miguel, and Shane came by too, bringing Jackson updates. The judge saw everything, Tori said one afternoon, leaning against the window. Body cam footage, witness recordings, the street cameras. They know Black Venom was the problem, not us. Miguel nodded. We're still getting a slap for some unregistered mods and a few old infractions, but nothing like what Dante's facing. Shane added. There's talk of the city creating a legal street racing program, controlled environment, safety rules, community focus. They want someone experienced to help design it. He looked pointedly at Jackson. And you're at the top of their list. Jackson raised a brow. Me? After all this? Especially after all this, Tori said. People saw you on that ramp. Parents saw you at the crosswalk. You changed a lot of minds. Grace, who had been listening quietly from the corner, spoke up. I already told them I support the program, she said. I even volunteered to help with community meetings. Tori blinked. You? At a racing meeting? Yes, Grace replied. If kids are going to look at racers as heroes, I want to be sure those racers understand what responsibility means. She met Jackson's eyes. And I want Noah to grow up knowing the full picture, not a story built on anger. Months later, the city opened the Mar Riverside Speed Initiative, a supervised racing program built on the edge of town near a repurposed industrial lot. A track looped around concrete barriers and painted lines. Safety crews waited in vests and helmets. Stands were set up for families and kids. There were strict rules. No illegal betting, no drugs, no running from the police, no using the track for anything criminal. Break the rules, lose your spot. Redline Phoenix became part of the official coaching team. Dante's crew did not. On opening day, the air buzzed with excitement. Cars lined up at the start line, polished and tuned. Kids in oversized ear protectors sat on the bleachers, eyes wide. Grace stood near a small tent, handing out flyers about safety and community workshops. She listened carefully to every parent's concern and answered from a place she never thought she'd stand in, one of cautious support. Noah ran along the fence, watching mechanics make final checks on the vehicles. He wore a cap with the Redline Phoenix logo and a lanyard that read, Track Assistant. He stopped near Jackson's car. You nervous? Noah asked. A little, Jackson admitted. Official events hit different. Want me to say something into the mic? Noah suggested. You know, to make people like you more? Jackson laughed. I think you already did enough for me just by standing near me without running away. Noah grinned. Then I want to do more. Shortly after, the event organizer called for attention. Before we start, she announced over the speakers, We'd like to give the microphone to someone very special, someone whose story helped shape this program. She waved Noah forward. He froze for a second. Then he felt Jackson's hand on his shoulder. You don't have to, Jackson said softly. I want to, Noah replied. He walked to the center of the track, took the microphone with shaking hands, and looked at the crowd. There were so many faces. Curious, skeptical, hopeful, afraid. Some looked at him with pity, others with interest. He took a breath. My name is Noah Collins, he began. His voice shook, but he kept going. When I was little, my dad died in a car accident. There were racers on the bridge that night. I decided that meant all racers were dangerous. He glanced at Jackson, then at Grace. For years I said that, Noah continued. I said it at home. I said it at school. I believed it. I thought every loud engine meant something bad was about to happen. He took another breath. But a racer pulled me out of the car that night. I didn't remember it clearly. I was scared. I was small. I only remembered fire and noise. He straightened his shoulders a little. 3 years later, that same racer stopped a car from hitting me and other kids at a crosswalk. He destroyed his own car to save us. And then, when someone bad took me, he chased a van onto a broken ramp and risked his life again to pull me back. Noah's throat tightened, but he pushed through. So now I know. Racers are not one thing, he said. Some people use fast cars to scare and hurt. They are dangerous. But some racers use their skills to protect people, to help, to make this city safer. He looked at the crowd with steady eyes. I was wrong when I said all racers are dangerous. I was hurting, I was scared, and I didn't see the whole truth. He turned and pointed gently toward Jackson. That man saved my life twice, Noah said. He made mistakes. He owns them. But he chose to be better, and that's what I hope this place does. I hope it turns people who love speed into people who also love responsibility. He swallowed hard. I miss my dad every day, he finished. I wish he was here to see this. I think he'd be proud. Not because racers are perfect, but because people here are trying to do the right thing. The crowd was quiet for a long moment. Then applause broke out, slow at first, then stronger. Some parents wiped their eyes. A few kids cheered loudly. Grace stood near the fence, hand over her heart. Jackson watched Noah with a look that held pride, sorrow, and something close to peace. The organizer took the microphone back. Thank you, Noah, she said. You're braver than you know. Later, as the sun began to sink, the first official heat started. Cars lined up at the start. Engines revved, but this time within a safe space, under rules and supervision. Noah stood beside Jackson's car. Can I? Noah started. Ride with me? Jackson finished. Not in a race heat. But we can do a slow lap after the event, on the empty track. Noah smiled. Deal. Grace walked over, holding 2 helmets. One for you, she said, handing a small one to Noah, and one for him. She passed the other to Jackson. He looked at her. Are you sure? I'm still scared, she admitted, but I'm also grateful, and I don't want my son to live the rest of his life running from the sound of an engine. She looked at Noah. I want him to choose what he believes, with all the facts. Noah hugged her tightly. Thanks, Mom. When the event ended and the stand started to empty, Jackson opened the passenger door of his car. Ready? He asked. Noah nodded, wearing the helmet. He climbed in and buckled his seatbelt carefully. Grace watched from the fence, hands gripping the metal, nervous but smiling. Jackson started the engine. The car rumbled, strong and controlled. We're just going slow, Jackson reminded him. 1 lap. You tell me if you feel uncomfortable at any time. I stop. I trust you, Noah said. Jackson's eyes softened. That means more than you know. He rolled the car forward onto the track. The empty lane stretched ahead, clear and safe. They moved at a calm pace, the city skyline in the distance. Noah listened to the engine, to the tire hum, to the faint wind outside the window. His heart didn't race in panic this time. He looked at Jackson. Can you tell me more about Dad? About that night? About what you saw him do? Yes, Jackson said. I can, and I will. As they continued around the loop, Jackson began to speak. He described Noah's father turning his wheel to shield others. He described the fire, the time running out, the weight of carrying a small boy away from a burning car. He described the guilt that followed him for years, and the promise he made to never run from responsibility again. Noah listened to every word. When they finished the lap, Jackson parked near the fence. Grace walked over as Noah pulled off his helmet, hair messy, face flushed but eyes calm. Well? She asked. Noah nodded slowly. Engines are loud, he said, but they're not all bad. He looked up at Jackson and then back at her. People choose what they do with them, that's what matters. Grace smiled. Exactly. She helped him out of the car and hugged him tight. Jackson stepped back, giving them space, but Noah reached out and grabbed his sleeve. Hey, Noah said, you're family now too. You know that, right? Jackson froze. Family. It was a word he hadn't expected to hear from this boy. He cleared his throat. If your mom is okay with that. Grace met his eyes. I think we've run from each other long enough, she said. You saved my son's life. Twice. You helped me face the truth about my husband. You turned your worst mistake into something that might help hundreds of kids stay safe. She took a breath. I'm okay with that. Noah grinned. For the first time since the night on the bridge, Jackson felt something heavy lift from his shoulders. He looked at the car, at the track, at the boy who no longer flinched at the sound of an engine. Then I'll be around, he said simply. Noah nodded, satisfied. The evening breeze brushed across the track. Mechanics packed up tools. Families headed to the parking lot. A few children waved goodbye to the racers they had just watched. As they walked toward the exit together, Grace, Noah, and Jackson, the distant sound of other engines echoed from a nearby road. Noah heard them. He didn't freeze. He didn't cling. He just looked at Jackson and asked, Think they're good racers or bad ones? Jackson shrugged. Hard to say from here. Noah thought for a moment. Maybe someday, he said. I'll be the one teaching people how to be the good kind. Jackson smiled. If that happens, I'll be right there, making sure you don't break any rules. Grace laughed softly. Both of you better follow the rules. They walked on side by side. Engines roared in the distance, but in Noah's chest, there was no terror now. Only a steady, quiet certainty. Racers could be dangerous, but they could also be the ones who showed up when no one else did. And when he remembered the night his life was saved, twice, he knew which kind he would always choose to stand with.